Hey everybody, today we're taking a look at the latest early access build of Plague Inc. And this is a game that has been in development for quite some time now. I think it actually entered early access way back in 2014 and is based on a mobile game from 2012. And as a result, I think a lot of people have maybe forgotten about this game. But I wanted to feature it on the channel here today because I think they might be reaching a point where I'm cautiously saying that they might be getting close to finishing this game. Going through it and looking through the available content for it, I kind of get the feeling like maybe there's only one or two major features left that they need to implement before you could consider this a finished game. The primary feature that's missing at the moment is the cooperative option for multiplayer, which has been promised and greatly anticipated for quite some time now. And you see that if I go to play that option here, you get this message describing the situation that the feature is still planned. It's going to come to the game eventually, but it's not present in this particular build. So I think once this is actually done and in place, it won't be too much longer before we see this game actually ship. But this has been one of those games that I've really wanted to get into and really wanted to spend some time with and feature on the channel because I think it's a very interesting premise and has some very interesting and clever mechanics to it. So I think we're getting close enough now to where this thing is actually going to come out that I feel comfortable showing it to you guys. So what I'm going to do for today is just jump into the single player mode and show you guys a little bit of the beginning of the game and give you a sense of what it's all about, and maybe that'll help you determine whether or not this is something you'd actually be interested in. So the basic premise of the game is that you have to create a virus or a bacteria or some sort of plague that wipes out all of humanity. And how you actually do that is you indirectly control the evolution of said plague using DNA that you acquire from all the humans that are infected with it. So as you can see here, I've already beaten the game with the bacteria, which is the sort of default version of the plague that you can start with. And I actually have the virus unlocked, so I'm going to try to jump in here and see what kind of damage we can do with that form of plague. But as you can see, there are many other plague variants, including the Planet of the Apes plague, which I think was done as a special promotional tie-in at some point for when that latest Planet of the Apes movie came out, which is kind of funny. But for our purposes here today, I'm going to go with the virus. I also wanted to explain a little bit about the sort of progression of the game. So basically each time you beat the game, you unlock different modifiers. So in this case, I unlocked a gene for the virus that allows it to mutate much more easily. So you can play with or without these things, but since I just unlocked this, and viruses have a tendency to mutate faster than other forms of plague anyway, I think let's crank up the mutation factor even higher and see what kind of chaos comes about as a result of that. The other thing you need to do whenever you're first starting out in the game is select the difficulty, which it'll tell you here like how the difficulty setting that you pick is going to influence the way the game plays out. You can see here we have several options available to us. One thing to note though is if you don't play on at least normal difficulty, you won't unlock achievements and new genes and new virus types and that sort of thing. So we're going to play on normal because of that. And the last thing you need to do before you get started is to name your plague. So in this case, I think Oogie Boogie sounds pretty good. One of the most fun things about the game is that these news bulletins will come up that inject the name of your plague into them. So it's kind of fun to come up with humorous and or clever things to have the game say back to you whenever you're reading the news bulletins. So we're going to go with Oogie Boogie for our virus and see how that works out. So, as you can see, you are a new virus. To win, you must evolve and spread across the world, wiping out all humans in the ultimate plague. So, basically, what we want to do here is anytime one of these messages comes up, the game will actually automatically pause and give you time to think about what you're going to do as a result of that, so you don't have to worry about reading this stuff too quickly. The game's not going to move until you clear out these dialogues, which is nice. But what we first have to do is kind of select the place where our virus is going to start. A strategy that I've been employing, at least early on in the game, that seems to work pretty well, is to select Egypt as the country of origin for the virus. That's good for a few different reasons. One, because it has an airport, so the virus tends to spread very quickly, especially if you select the airborne transmission method. The other thing is it's in a nice warm climate. The virus will automatically adapt to the warm climate, and you won't have to spend extra DNA to make it suitable to that environment. The other thing is that this tends to be a lower population, lower tech, lower financial resources part of the world, so the medical community will take longer to become aware of the plague and will have less resources available to combat it than, say, if you started the virus in the US or the UK or Japan or some other place, or Canada, that has really good healthcare and such. So we're going to go ahead and start off here, and then the beginning of the game is pretty simple. You just start out by infecting a handful of people, and then that virus will transmit itself to them through its inherent means. But what you can do is, once you attain a certain amount of DNA from your virus infecting various people, you will be able to increase the methods by which the virus is transmitted. So you'll see down in the lower left there's a DNA counter, which is going to be going up as we pop these DNA bubbles. And once we reach about 15 or so DNA, the game will actually prompt us to do our first evolution of the virus. And I can show you a little bit more about what's up with that. As you can see here, we've got planes flying around the world to and from all these locations. We've got ships going around the oceans to and from all these different locations. And you can actually use that traffic pattern to figure out the best way to transmit the plague around the world. And of course, one of the big things with this scenario is that you want to keep the plague under the radar as much as possible until it's infected a large percentage of the world's population, because once the more violent symptoms of the plague manifest themselves, it's going to be only a matter of time before the world's researchers and scientists and doctors and such focus all their attention on coming up with a cure. So a good general strategy for this game is to kind of do a stealth run where you try to spread the plague as much as possible while keeping the symptoms from getting too out of hand, so that whenever it finally starts killing people or actually gets onto the radar of the scientific community, it's too late for them to actually stop it from infecting everybody. Gruesome, I know, but this is when game mechanics meet real-world concepts in a head-on collision. So as you can see, the virus is starting to spread. It's starting to get more DNA available to it. Now we've actually hit 16 DNA, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and we can actually go and chart the evolution of the virus. So as I said before, one of the things we want to do is look at how the virus is actually transmitted. So again, since there's an airport here in Egypt, going with an airborne transmission method makes a lot of sense, and that is only going to cost us 9 DNA to do. So let's go ahead and evolve the virus and see what impact that has on its spread. And at this point, the things we're doing to evolve the virus don't have symptoms that are associated with them, so we should be able to spread this pretty thoroughly throughout a large chunk of the world without people necessarily even being aware of the fact that they're infected. I also have to say, I love this Resident Evil-ish sort of background music they have here. Don't think that went unnoticed, developers. I see what you did there.